Hi guys, I'll be reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid: The Deep End by Jeff Kinney. So we last left off on page 96. Again, thank you Hoopla for letting me borrow this awesome ebook and many more. Diary of a Wimpy Kid: The Deep End by Jeff Kinney. Saturday. Last night, the light from the flare scared off the bear, so when the ranger arrived at our campsite, we didn't really need to be rescued anymore. By then, our biggest problem was the marshmallow burn on Dad's knee. The ranger said it was totally reckless for us to shoot off that flare because it could have started a forest fire. Then she said we were going to have to leave the park first thing in the morning. Well, that was fine with me. We lasted one night in the wilderness, and I don't think we could survive another. Vroom. When we left the park this morning, I was really looking forward to getting back to Grandma's basement. I knew we'd have plenty of hot water and no bears. But Mom wasn't ready to go back home yet. She said the reason we had a bad time camping was because we were too isolated. And if we went to a place where there were other people, we'd have more fun. Mom told us she'd heard one of those RV parks where they have all sorts heard of one of these RV parks where they have all sorts of activities for families and everything you need is in one place. Then she started looking up nearby RV parks and found one that had potential. Welcome to Paradise, Campers Eden, luxury campground. 42 acres of well-manicured rounds just off the highway. Accommodations for all budget. Affordable family fun. Pet-friendly. What caught my eye was the word luxury. After getting a taste of real camping, I was ready for something a little more upscale. I knew from Sunday school that Eden was another word for paradise, so that sounded promising. The way I remember it, Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden because one of them was tempted to eat an apple from a forbidden tree. If it was me, I wouldn't have given up paradise for a piece of fruit. It would have had to be for something good, like a Twinkie. It took us most of the day to get to Campers Eden, but when we crossed over the bridge and got our first look at the place, I could see why they named it what they did. We pulled up to a lodge and went inside, where a staffer told us about all the awesome stuff they had at the campground, like a game room and a pool and horseshoe pits, plus a lake with canoes and kayaks. There was also a bathhouse where you could take a hot shower, which was the thing that Mom was most excited about. What I liked was that each campsite had its own sewer hookup. The inside of our camper was starting to smell like a monkey house, and I was really looking forward to our sewage tank getting flushed out. Mom told the staffer we'd like a campsite with the lake view, but the woman told Mom that people booked those way ahead of time and that the only spots left were in the economy lot. I guess Mom was focused on that hot shower because she said we'd take whatever they had. And after we paid up for the week, we drove our camper down the hill to find our site. The farther down the hill we went, the smaller the campsites got. And when we found our spot, Dad could barely fit the camper onto the concrete pad. After we parked, Mom unloaded the camping chairs while Dad tried to figure out how to flush the sewage tank. I wanted to be as far away as possible when he got that process started. So I told Mom and Dad I was going to go off and explore the campground. I wanted to check out the game room, so that's where I went first. There were a few arcade machines in there, but nothing I was really interested in playing. Blam blam. Dough Hunter. They had a table, but from what I could tell, it didn't have any actual balls. Swap. I checked out the swimming pool next, and that was kind of a disappointment. It was full of little kids, and their parents weren't even keeping their eyes on them. Nowadays, kids wear these floaty wet vests so they don't have to learn how to swim. It's not like when I was growing up, when you had to learn the hard way. Swim. Some of the little kids drifted out into the deep end, which was a problem because people were doing cannonballs off the high dive. Splush. There was no lifeguard on duty, so everyone was pretty much doing whatever they wanted. I didn't really feel safe going in the pool, so I decided to relax in the hot tub instead. But that's when I found out this place wasn't joking around about the pet-friendly thing. There was a snack shack in the pool area, and a laundromat and bathhouse were close by. I wanted to kill a little more time before I went back to our camper in case Dad wasn't done emptying out the sewage tank. So I explored some of the other campsites to see what they were like. The nicest ones were the deluxe campsites that overlooked the street. Those people had satellite dishes and fancy grills, and they had actual lawns that they took care of. I could tell that the deluxe campsite people didn't like us economy guys hanging around their properties, though, so I didn't stick around that long. The spots further down the hill weren't as nice, but each row was kind of like its own little neighborhood. One of the rows had a bunch of older people in it, so I'm guessing that was the area for retirees. A few rows down were families with little kids. Some of the rows had themes, and people went kind of crazy with the decorations. A few people didn't have full-size campers, and I felt grateful that Uncle Gary hadn't left us one of those instead. Some other people didn't have campers at all. There was one campsite that looked like it had a full motorcycle gang in it, and I was glad we didn't end up as neighbors with those guys. But it might have been even worse if we ended up in the pet-friendly row, because that area was a total zoo. Bark, bark, ruff, ruff, meow, chirp. I could tell when I was getting closer to the economy row because the campsite were packed a whole lot tighter, and people had to make the most of their space. When I got back to our campsite, Dad was cooking hot dogs on the grill. I wanted to ask him if he'd washed his hands after doing the sewage hookup, but I thought he might get annoyed with me. Mom was trying to get to know some of our neighbors, but they seemed like the type of people who like to keep to themselves. Once Dad was done cooking, we sat down at our picnic table to eat. But the people on the other side of us were playing cornhole on their roof, and somebody up there had lousy aim. While we were cleaning up the mess, I told Mom and Dad I thought coming here might have been a mistake. But Mom said sometimes it's just hard getting used to a new place, and I just needed to give it a chance. Then she reminded me that we hadn't even visited the lake yet, which should be the best part. I was about to say something else, But when I got interrupted by a noise coming from the direction of the main lodge. Ree! It sounded like one of those air raid sirens you hear in a war movie when enemy bombers are approaching, and it put me totally on edge. Our next door neighbors seemed nervous too, and they gathered up their stuff to take inside their camper. When Dad asked what the siren was for, then our neighbors said that it meant there was a skunk on the property, and everyone needed to get inside in a hurry. Well, that was enough to get us moving. We shut our door and peeked out of the window while we waited. Sure enough, a few minutes later, a skunk came sniffing around our campsite. It got up on the picnic table, and when it started eating our hot dogs, there was nothing we could do but watch. Once the skunk was done eating, it left. And after a while, the siren stopped and everyone came back outside. Even though the skunk was gone, the whole campsite smelled terrible. Dad said the reason it smelled so bad was because there's some sort of chemical in a skunk's glands that people can smell from a mile away. And he said if you got sprayed by a skunk, it would be 1,000 times worse. He said the best thing you could do if you ran into a skunk was to back away slowly, because a skunk will only spray a person if it feels like it's cornered or threatened. Then he said, you know you're about to be sprayed if a skunk stands on its front legs and wiggles its butt. But by then, it's probably too late. Roderick said that a skunk spray doesn't just smell bad, it's flammable too. I don't know if that's true or another one of his lies. If it is true, then once skunks figure out how to light matches, human beings are in big trouble. Aye! When God created the animals, He gave them all cool stuff to defend themselves with, like shells and talons and claws. But by the time it came to create people, all the good ideas were used up. Good luck. I guess God made it up for it by giving us big brains. But if it was up to me, I probably would have gone with quills. I figure if something as small as a skunk could scare off predators by smelling bad, then maybe it could work for me. And that's when I decided I'm not going to shower until I finish high school. I probably shouldn't have told Mom my plan, though, because all it did was remind her that I skipped taking a shower today. So now she's making me take one first thing tomorrow morning. Sniff, sniff. Luckily, we had a few extra hot dogs in the camper, and Dad cooked them over the fire. But I kept thinking about that skunk. So I was already a little jumpy when all of a sudden we got sprayed. It wasn't a skunk though that sprayed us. It was one of our neighbors. Apparently, 9 o'clock is lights out at camp, and I guess people around here take that pretty seriously. So we turned in for the night, but I didn't really sleep because, like I said before, the economy campsites were packed together tight. Okay, guys, that's all we have for today. See you tomorrow. Actually, see